Boneshatter Slayer is the absolute quickest melee mapper you can play. Start this build with no budget at all, working your way through the vendor recipe crafts until you craft your own gear with full crafting instructions in my Maxroll article. Leap Slam, explosions, overleach, and a tanky enough setup that makes this my best melee league start blaster ever, with all the help of the boner god himself, Karn. Thank you. Boneshatter releases a damage pulse when you stun enemies, and you get a trauma stack every single hit you land on an enemy, and the damage ramps up. So the more trauma you have, the more damage you take the next time you get a stack. This trauma gives more damage, but it does deal a lot to us. So that's why Slayer Overleach is how we're going to counteract this damage. This build also uses my favorite ability in Path of Exile, Berserk. With a cast when damage taken setup combined with Warlord's Mark, we can use the self-damage to trigger that Warlord Mark and get the rage regeneration by stunning an enemy with Warlord's Mark on them. This allows us to use Berserk while we're clearing and also to save a use of it against map bosses to have huge burst damage. If you're looking for an easy mapping blaster and don't care about completing the uber bosses, then this is the build for you. We choose Slayer because of the strike range, accuracy, AoE, and extra damage from impact. Brutal Fever being a cornerstone of all Slayer builds, giving us that overleach to counteract the trauma stacks and to make it very nice and very smooth. Bane of Legends and Headsman gives us a ton of damage to make the culling of map bosses quick and simple. The playstyle of this is very easy, with the majority of it coming down to leap slamming and bone shattering, with an occasional berserk to make yourself bigger, faster, stronger, and take less damage. On bosses, you'll throw your totems down, pop berserk, and put down your war banner for adrenaline, which is one of the best buffs in the game, giving you damage, attack speed, and physical damage reduction. We'll level this build using Splitting Steel through Act 1 up until Spectral Helix right at Mervale. We use Helix because it's the best leveling ability in the game. You throw your axe out to create an ethereal copy spinning around you just like a Hammerden in Diablo 2, and you leap slam away, trusting that it kills most monsters. You don't need to kill every single monster with Helix. Throw a couple out, it'll kill most of them, and leap slam away, allowing you to have this very quick gameplay to keep blasting. Once you hit Act 4, you're going to swap to Boneshatter after you complete your normal lab and get impact. That gives strike range, accuracy, AoE, and damage, which is everything we need on an early Boneshatter character. After that, you get to start blasting as a fully fledged BoneZone member. The leveling gems, trees, and gear are in the POE and in my Maxroll article. So if you need step-by-step instructions for how to level the build, for what skill gems you need, and for what gear to progress your character, you can check it all out there. The map mods you want to avoid on this build are obviously going to be Cannot Leech, which stops our only recovery method, and Cannot Be Stunned, which is going to stop our clear. We don't have to worry about the Cannot Be Stunned monsters as much anymore, so please don't comment below or I will remove your comments about how the build is bricked, because Karn had a clip on the Reddit. All right, it's been addressed. It was 500, now it's 250, and that should give us enough wiggle room to be able to stun those monsters, at least when we upgrade our character. Otherwise, it shouldn't be that big of an issue, as I don't think literally every magic monster in a map will have literally the exact same modifiers. I disagree with Karn's interpretation. I took that as magic monsters that spawn in a ritual will all share the same modifiers. Magic monsters that spawn in a pack will have the same magic modifiers. Not every single magic monster will get chosen for one mod, and that mod will be in the whole map. I don't think that's how they've done it. Anyways, we are starting this build with two-hand axes because axes give a fairly sizable amount of damage early on, but more importantly, they give onslaught on kill and the rage generation mastery. This lets us blast super fast early on, giving us a much needed attack speed bonus for our Boneshatter and for our Leap Slam. Once you obtain the onslaught on kill boot mod and a good enough mace, Then we will swap to maces for easier, stronger, and longer lasting stuns on enemies and bosses. Maces are all about stunning, so is Boneshatter, so it's a match made in heaven. The respec is going to be minimal, and it can be done with the respec points you obtain while leveling and a few additional regrets past that. Down below, I have 3 path of buildings in the description for the early game and leveling, the mid game, and the end game. Now, only the end game will have the crafting inside the POE, so if you need guidance for gearing throughout the entire character, check out my Maxroll Article milestone section where there are step-by-step instructions for the exact next piece of gear you should be focusing on, where you can find this, and how to craft them. As far as what content to farm on this build, you can do all mapping content except heavy delirium. Expedition, you can do expedition, altars, some elk and go strategy you might find in a Grim video or Maxroll Article. The new league mechanic, perhaps some harvest if it's valuable to farm for the life force. Honestly, you can do all mapping content in the game aside from 80 and 100% delirium. With the endgame gear set, you can do your Maven invitations too, grinding out your Shaper Guardians, completing that invitation, getting some Maven Splinters, and selling all your Shaper Fragments and Maven's Writs. But do not expect to be farming bosses on this build, because that is not what Boneshatter was made for. Boneshatter was made for mapping and for blasting. Having that explosion built in makes this a certified map blaster. Boneshatter was made for mapping, just like how your mother was made for breading the dinner table with yummy loaves. Now, let's go over to the path of building and explain all the gear choices, the decisions, leveling gems, and etc. And go over my rationale for the gear choices and how to obtain them. In my leveling and early game POE, there are skill trees to hold your hand for what points to choose, a skill gem section with a leveling and mapping skill set, which you need to swap between to see what to do while leveling, what to do while mapping, and there is a leveling and mapping gear setup. So let's go over the tree first. You just come out, you get the accuracy and attack speed, you're getting life and evasion, right? Very basic stuff. You go to 2-hand for level 12. You're going to rush over here for the rage generation, which gives you attack damage, attack speed, and move speed, and the onslaught on kill with axes. By the time you hit this node, you need to make sure you're using axes. Before this, you can use swords, you can use a mace. Well, no, you can't use a mace with splitting. Now you just use swords or axes, whichever. But once you get to this point, you want a vendor recipe, an axe, and the vendor recipe. Well, look at that. You vendor a rustic sash, a blacksmith whetstone, and the highest level 2-hand axe that you can. We get this for extra armor, evasion, and then some all resistance to help us out, to help cap res. And then from this point onwards, we're going to rush straight for Tribal Fury, which gives you 1 additional target for your strike skills. You also need the mastery to strike targets from 30% further away, and the melee strike range on the left side is going to be necessary as well. Before you get this and your normal lab at impact, do not swap to Boneshatter. You should only swap about at the first, few levels into Act 4, right? You should be about 31, 32, 33 before you swap over, because you need Tribal Fury and you need impact. Past this, it's going to be pretty basic. We're just going to scoop some damage, scoop some life. Once you get Call to Arms, you can use Ancestral Protector on left mouse button. Then we're going to come up here. We're getting Resolute Technique. We're getting more axe damage, life and armor, more life, and we're going to pick up Inexorable, which gives us Endurance Charge Generations when we strike with Boneshatter, because when we strike with Boneshatter, it counts as a hit against us when we gain trauma. So this is a very easy way to obtain a lot of physical mitigation to help prevent that Boneshatter trauma damage early on. Your Cruel Lab is going to pick up Bane of Legends, which is just more damage, and then you're going to fill out your tree from 55 to 68 right up to maps. We're going to get Fortified Duration. We're going to pick this up for extra aura effect and for reservation efficiency. We're going to come over here, get our life and mana leech, and we're going to get Vault Pact as well, and then some more life as well. Now the big thing to do, what the fuck is this? While mapping, we're going to pick up some Impale to get a little bit of extra damage too. We're going to get the Merciless Skewering and the Harpooner nodes, as well as filling out life wherever we can. For your Merciless Lab, of course, we're going to get the 20% Culling Strike. The leveling skills are pretty self-explanatory. It's just going to be a generic Splitting Steel into Helix swap. You're going to get Ancestral Protector, War Banner, Link Maim to your totem. You're going to do Dash and then into Leap Slam. You get Helix, Chance to Bleed, Onslaught for the extra attack and cast speed. In Act 2, we're going to use Herald of Ash to get a little little extra clear, Herald of Purity, Blood Rage for the frenzy charges and attack speed, faster attacks to make our movement faster, Poacher Mark because it gives us life on hit and because it gives minus DR and a little extra flat fizz there. We're gonna use faster attacks with our Spectral Helix to make the clear a little bit faster. And once you hit Normal Lab and a Tribal Fury, you're gonna swap to Boneshatter and Ruthless to give more damage every third strike and a base stun chance that we scale. Close combat while we're using axes because it gives us more damage in addition to extra attack speed on our Leap Slam. We use Onslaught support to keep that Onslaught buff up, but this can be swapped on over to Fortify once you get the links because we do have that Onslaught on kill. It's just nice to have good uptime on Onslaught until that point. We use Grace, Herald of Ash as our auras while leveling, and eventually when you can, you want to cast when damage taken, Warlord Mark and Molten Shell setup, as well as Ancestral Cry on left mouse button. As far as mapping skills go, we're going to keep melee fizz damage for damage, brutality for damage, close combat for damage, and extra leap slam attack speed. And we use Fortify to get fortification, obviously to take less damage. Ruthless gives stun and damage. Berserk, it gives damage, right? You can pop it if you want your POB number to be bigger. It makes you have a better build. Leaf Slam, faster attacks, life tap, so we don't have to worry about mana. Blood Rage for frenzies and attack speed. We use Determination because we need a lot of armor. Pride for damage, War Banner for the accuracy later on, but more so for the adrenaline and the for the increased physical damage and then the adrenaline proc later on. You should put War Banner down on bosses to get adrenaline because look at this. I go from 1.9 and then I take adrenaline and we go to 2.5, right? That's pretty nice. When you get to the boss, you put down everything, right? You put down your War Banner. It's got 50 stages. And then you have Adrenaline. You get up to 2.5. You get to put down your Berserk on. Now you're at 3.7, right? You know, you nearly double your damage if you just press your 2 extra buttons. And we use Frost Blink in addition with Leap Slam for some very quick and snappy movement. You Leap Slam around and then you blink on over. We are gonna Vol a War Chief Totem if you want one additional button. It's not super mandatory. I played without it for a very long time. But you know, just the War Chief Totem, the Protector, Maim, and Multi-Totem will be fine enough. And then same old cast damage taken with Molten Shell and Warlord Mark and an Ancestral Call. As far as gearing goes, you need to just Fizz Reforge on axes, Despot being a very comfortable base because it has higher base attack speed, so when you get attack speed on it, makes your leap slamming and your bone shattering feel a lot smoother, even if each individual hit is a little bit less than a Vol Axe, for example. If you get flat fizz and attack speed on this, then you craft percent fizz. If you get percent fizz and flat fizz, then you craft attack speed, right? You just try to have a 3 mod axe with whatever you can get, crafting whichever one is missing. We're gonna use the Gull because we want to blast ass. This is great. It gives you shrines. Shrines make you take less damage. They give you extra speed and they just are super fun. So I love using that on League Start. Dragon Scale, right? You got trying to just get an armor evasion piece. A lot of this is going to be generic stuff until we need to cap suppression for red maps. But it's just going to be armor evasion, life, you know, resistance. The big pickups here on gloves are the damage while leeching on your glove and the damage while leeching on your amulet. Since we're leeching all the time, that's really good. That's just damage all the time. Our anointment is going to be kinetic impacts because it's cheap and it gives us enough damage. I was gonna use Panopticon, but then everybody who looked at Panopticon started cringing, and I'm like, you know what, that is pretty cringe, so I'm gonna stop doing Panopticon. All right, I've learned my ways. I've seen the error of my ways. Boots, try to get attack and cast speed enchant, and try to get Canopy Chilled and the Onslaught on Kill craft unveiled. We're gonna use Canopy Chilled for now, but later on when we swap to maces, this is where we get Onslaught. It'll be the Onslaught on Kill craft. Your ring, life res, your belt, life res, your jewel, attack speed, life, you know, whatever you can get. Just get an abyss jewel, maybe get corrupting blood. Your flasks, extremely important. This is the most important flask for the build, is going to be your Jade of Evasion rating. Without this Jade of Evasion rating, you are not going to hit 40% evade chance. You're going to be at 12, and it's going to feel very bad when you take attacks. We've got a lot of armor, but since we have to use Pride and we can't do Divine Blessing memes, you need to have a little evasion rating, and we're not going to be able to fit in that Grace until we get an Ool's Amulet later on. So for now, you're just going to have to cope with a Jade Flask, get increased charge recovery, use when charges reach full. When you're blasting maps, it should be no issue at all to keep this flask up 100% of the time because you're going to be leap slamming and killing all the time. Your Quicksilver, you know, get whatever, get attack speed, get armor as soon as you can. I know I'm including this and I'm going to get memed on, but if you can early on, get an Impale on hit Watcher Eye. This is, I'm not doing Impale 2, right? It's an Impale chance. Nobody uses this, but you know, me recommending it, people are going to use it, whatever. If it's more than like, you know, like 30, 40 chaos, just don't pick it up. But this gives like a lot of nice damage, right? You could just like slot this in and it gives you good It gives you good. Otherwise, just use a rare with like global fizz, attack speed with axes, and life. You know, just be wiggle room. This isn't like the make or break it. This is just a cute addition that like nobody uses, right? Like whoever ID'd Impale Chance, right? Not Impale's last 2 additional hits, Impale Chance on a Watcher Eye and started pogging out. Like literally 0 people. So I figure we might as well have that there to be able to use. Next is going to be the Mace swap. Here, our links are going to change up a little bit. We're not going to be using close combat anymore. You're going to use endurance charge on melee stun now to get damage per endurance charge and to get reduced enemy stun threshold, which is very good and makes it much easier to stun. All the links here are going to be the exact same, just 6 socket your weapon. It doesn't need to be 6 linked. 6 sockets are good enough. The only gems that need to be linked are leap slam and faster attacks. So a 2 link 6 socket weapon is good enough. In your helmet, determination, pride, and precision arrogance, because the big swap here is going to be going precise techniques, which requires lots of accuracy. So we're going to be giving up like 2% of our total life, right? You only need this to be level 5. That means we're only taking away 100 life, right? I think we can afford to lose 102 life, because what that 102 life gives us is 300 something accuracy. And if you need more than that, which is a pretty decent roll, if you need more than that, you can level it up, right? You can have this be level 10 and you lose 4% of your life. And now you're getting 600 accuracy, right? This is wiggle room. You need to know what accuracy you need, and to find that out, it's super simple. Just open your character sheet, look at your accuracy. Is your accuracy number bigger than your life number? Because precise techniques gives you 40% more damage, right? 40% of all the damage of this build comes from this node, and you need your accuracy to be higher than your maximum life, which is not that difficult, because we're going to take Weathered Hunter for extra resistances, accuracy, and we're taking the dexterity mastery here, and we're going to cap spell suppression now that we're trying to get into red maps. The problem is spell suppression is a huge pain in the ass to get now, so you will not have 100% spell suppression going into red maps. It's just not going to happen. That will be okay. You can have 95 spell suppression and it's still going to do a lot of work. If someone's trying to tell you that you either have 100% spell suppression or 0 in softcore, then they're a dumbass, because having 90% suppression does a lot of work when you're clearing maps. Now, sometimes you'll get unlucky. Maybe you're gonna die to spells, but most of the time, 90 suppression, 95, it's going to do a lot of work. Obviously, in hardcore, you got to have 100. In softcore, you can cope until you get very good pieces, because the issue with suppression now is not only are the rolls lower, but you cannot divine them. So if you get low rolls within the tier on every single piece of your gear, you're going to be down 5, 6, maybe even 8 spell suppression, right? Just because you can't divine your gear anymore. That sucks. But that doesn't mean you just shouldn't try for spell suppression. Our helmet, we're going to Eldritch Enchant for reduced mana cost of attacks and Fizz taken as fire, getting that same craft on there too from Corel helmets. Get suppression, get life, get res, get an enchant. On your body armor, Eldritch Influence, a suppression, res, and life chest piece, pride, aura effect, or and just aura effect in general. Here you're going to roll for strike skills, target 1 additional enemy, and if you can get a little impale chance here as well. Get some suppression, get life, get res, and the damage while leeching, and then get suppression on your boots as well with the onslaught on kill. Now that we've swapped to maces, right? You get a pretty decent mace. The crafting guide for this is in my Maxroll article, and I'll put that in the notes section here as well. But it's not terribly difficult. You can just use some essences for your flat fizz. You can use physical reforges, but it is going to require you to lock your prefixes and use a Veiled Chaos Orb to try and get physical damage, which is going to cost 2 divines. But you know, to get a really good weapon, that's just what you're gonna have to do for the end game stuff. The double damage while focused you can replace with just generic double damage if you don't want to press that extra button, but it is a crap ton of damage if you don't mind. Your amulet, we're going to get accuracy, right? Everything needs accuracy as much as we can. We need accuracy, life, res, and the damage while leeching. We're going to anoint instinct to make our suppression capping much easier, as well as taking this mastery. But your boots need to have evasion. Your helmets and gloves need it as well. So make sure your boots, helmet, gloves have evasion rating on them before you try to cap suppression. Your ring is harvest reforging attack, so you can get big accuracy rolls, some life and some res. And your belt, just get life and res. I'm gonna get a writhing jar now so that you can get your on kill effects before you start doing your bosses. You know, it's just all around very good on the Slayer build, because that on kill effect is not going to be available when you're doing a map boss. It's going to run out pretty much as you get there, but If you look this, we get 10 attack speed if I've killed a rare or unique enemy. And I also get 10% more damage if I've killed recently as well, which is very, very nice. So it's just a really good pickup, and it doubles as a instant life flask. So you can still use that for next, an instant 600 life. Then it's just the same flask as before. Please invest into your flasks. These are very important. And the same Watcher Eye. If you can get it, it's good damage. If you can't, rip and Roni. You see the tree here for the mace swap didn't really change much at all. You just drop this axe wheel here, instead getting the mace stuff up here. You drop this axe here, you get this mace here, and then you pick up this mace cluster here as well. All the mace stuff gives like stun duration, reduced stun threshold, area of effect. They're all really, really nice. And the cutest mastery here is all damage with maces and scepters inflicts chill. So this gives us, most of the time on map bosses, it's a 30% chill, but in the POB, I just put it at 10. I don't even think it matters anyway, but you get a nice little chill, and that's very, very cool. In addition to them being stunned, they're going to be slowed. And for the expensive Boneshatter setup, the big change here is just going to be you leveling up, getting more life, getting extra damage, being able to get max resistances here. But most important of all is going to be the Pride has no reservation. That allows us to be able to fit in a beautiful aura called Grace when we link it with Enlighten 3. You don't need 4, 3 is good enough. You can probably cope on 2, honestly. But the big pickup here is the Pride has no reservation Ool's Amulet. This allows us to fit in Grace where we otherwise weren't able to, so we can have some real invasion chance instead of this cope evasion chance with a Jade of evasion rating. Now we have 78 evade chance. You can easily get this up even more. Right, we are using a Watcher Eye here for the +8 evade chance. If you corrupt this Grace to be a Vol Grace, you can have capped evasion rating against bosses, but that's up to you. Otherwise, without this Watcher Eye, you'll be at 70 evade chance, which is still very respectable. Still going to be using these flasks. Still going to be using the exact same flasks as before: evasion rating, armor, attack speed, and reduce effective curses on you with the charge recovery and use on full. Your pile driver is going to be even more well crafted here. Try very hard to craft maces until you hit the increased fizz unveil combined with the impale chance, as that can be a very large amount of damage. And the final thing you can do with your mace now, with the crafting instructions and notes, by the way, is going to be the Warlord Slam for extra physical on suffixes. That's going to be a cute little thing you could try for at the end. We're going to flesh our gear out now, requiring tier 1 suppression on our pieces, so we can give up T1 suppression on a slot like our gloves to get even more accuracy, life, and resistances. And we're going to try for skills target 2 additional nearby enemies. You get the enchant here. It's the exact same stuff as before, except the numbers are going to be larger, right? The big change here is going to be using essences on your chest. Check the crafting notes to craft this, to know how to craft this, but you use essences on your chest to gain onslaught when you are hit. So that means every time you strike with Boneshatter, you gain a 6-second onslaught, so it's no longer on kill. We can reliably have that buff up on bosses. The boots are the exact same as before: suppression, double res, life, but now instead of onslaught on kill, we get to have cannot be chilled. Our rings are going to be accuracy and double res, accuracy and double res. If you get really good suffixes on rings, you can lock your suffixes and veiled chaos for life and mana regen, which allows you to have the minus mana cost as well. Your Stygian is going to be crafted now for life, chaos res, and the flash charge on crit does not work on this build. You can't deal critical strikes, but people are going to want that. And if you're fully crafting a belt, you might as well add that to your belt, so it makes it more sellable when you're done with the build or when you want to sell your gear for additional upgrades or for whatever. This is a very, very nice flash charge generation for builds that do not have that anymore with the masochists and the charge gain on hit stuff. So crafting this on your belt is a waste for your build, but think of the future. It makes your item way, way more sellable later on. But that can be skipped, honestly, if you don't want. Otherwise, you can reforge chaos and get chaos damage there. Get accuracy, corrupting blood here. Otherwise, you need accuracy elsewhere, or you can get corrupting blood elsewhere as well. And the Watcher Eye, you can get whatever here. You can get armor, determination, fizz DR, determination, You can get evade chance like I have here with impale chance. You can get impale last 2 hits. You can get fizz affected by pride. You know, get something, right? It's this is flexible. You can be really cute here. Skill gems are just going to be getting awakened things. The most important being awakened and melee fizz, so you have chance to intimidate enemies, which is an additional 10% more damage. Berserk, blood rage, faster attack, and leap slam. Nothing's changed here. Nothing's changed here, and nothing's changed here. Although there are some alternate qualities. Anomalous, giving 4% increased damage, which is really nice, and Ancestral Call, Divergent, giving us additional armor as well, giving us an extra 2k armor. Just cute little things. Honestly, Anomalous, cast with damage taken, giving a little extra skill effect duration. These aren't normally that expensive, but if it is, just use normal. You know, this is just where I choose the alt qualities that are good. Another big pickup is going to be Anomalous Blood Rage, so you actually have Frenzy charges on bosses. You get a 2% chance on hit, which is low, but we are hitting a lot and with many different things, so it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing, so it's a good pickup, but I would save that one for last. Anyways, check out the Maxroll article. All right, guys, we put so much work into it. If you need handholdy, if you need crafting instructions, if you don't know what to do, where to go, or how to do it, check out the Maxroll articles because they are very in-depth. Every single one of our builds is pristine. We put a lot of work in them. We have really, really good builds. And it's I promise you it's not going to be some random YouTube crap. We put a lot into these and it shows, so please use them. Anyways, catch me on the live stream, like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys later. All right, peace, homies.
Follow him, twitch.tv/tripolarbear. He's got a big dick, dude.